Hello, everyone. This is a truly terrible morning to wake up to. And sitting here, one has been seeing photographs of markets filled with orange flags everywhere. And at night, I could hear chants of someone ferociously screaming Jai Shri Ram from the main road. And one has been watching the interviews on television and things that have been going on, and someone wrote to me saying that it marks the death of secularism in India. I mean, when one looks at it, when one looks at the participation of the people of India in this whole production, one wonders whether there ever was secularism. But I think that it's still too early to say exactly what is going on. And there's a tendency to feel very despondent when you hear of a colony with people that you know, which is filled with saffron flags. But on the other hand, there's also a tendency to feel quite jubilant when you just hear very ordinary non-political people go out and have it removed because it doesn't have permission. And even if they go to the local pandit to ask, if they put it up, they find that no, the local pandit had nothing to do with it. So exactly what is behind all the symbols of celebration that you see around, how much it just comes from the people and how much it has been orchestrated. And also, perhaps more importantly, what is the spirit in which different people are celebrating this? Even in even in a dark time like this, there is a certain innocence and beauty in the bhakti of the common Indian, the common Hindu. And many of them could be responding simply from that, and not even very much aware of the politics or the history or the larger narrative that the Modi regime is sort of presenting in this regard. So, I mean, while one feels very, very despondent and hopeless today, at the same time, one has to still wait and see as to exactly what is going on. There are two things that I've been hearing a lot in the last few days, which I think is something that those of us who don't believe in what is going on right now will have to respond to. One is this, this claim that this temple has come up after 500 years of struggle. And the other one is there was a secular news outlet which was going around interviewing villagers and asking them what they thought about things. And one of the questions that the interviewer asked one person was, tell me four things which you believe, the four things which Ram did which you believe that Modi has done. And the person responded saying, चार चीज़ें मैं तो ऐसे नहीं बता सकता, लेकिन मोदी ने जो सनातन का झंडा लहराया है वो सही है. So I think that, I'm behind both of these statements is a version of history, an existential position that the Hindu in India has placed himself, which is a very vast and deep narrative And that is where our work will have to begin in responding. I think that no one need have any doubt that no society can be strong or prosperous, um, or nurturing, or creative, if it is not also, if there is so much division and mistrust and angry feelings um, among the different members of that society. Um, so we all, I mean, there's no doubt that we all have to work to win back the India that we love, and to restore a sense of friendship and openness and love in this country. There's no doubt about that. But this is a time when we have to think very hard, I think, about how we are to do it. And one of the things that has emerged in thinking about all of this and responding to some of the more, more sort of concerted and open efforts to change the ideals of this country, especially the attempt to dislodge Gandhi, for example. One thing which occurred to me in looking at all of this is that the idea of a secular and compassionate India is not something new, and that the reason to want this, and the reason why Indians in the past have responded to leaders who have appealed for this, is because we do have a composite culture. And I think that what those of us who are concerned about what is happening in the country today also need to do, and I don't think that it was done enough, is to also look back into our culture and really understand it and participate in it. I mean, you take Hindustani classical music. It's an example of this. But over the years, I have seen very, very fabulous festivals organized, and the halls are empty, excepting for a couple of names which may pull a crowd. And even that crowd is not the crowd that I see that is, writing in the liberal papers or organizing, left wing or secular activism. I mean, I don't, and I noticed this years ago because I felt that it was a pity that the audience is thinning out. So I think that, this is a place where we could do work. Because one of the disadvantages that we face in this is that the language of expression is English, and it's very easy to say that if you speak English, therefore you are not authentic, you are not Indian, you are not of any religion that comes from here, and so on and so on. But I mean, if it wasn't for English, there would have been so many other. I mean, we also need to speak to each other across states and so forth. And English is not a bad medium for that. At least it presented a possibility. But, the point is that one has to make more of an effort to assert one's authenticity and assert one's belongingness. And for that, there needs to be a much deeper and wider understanding of all the aspects of our culture that lie behind what people like Gandhi or Nehru or the frontier Gandhi, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, or Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, I mean, there has to be a deeper understanding. There are people, stalwarts, who take this who take this work seriously. They archive it. They make an effort to keep it alive and to present it again and again. But the understanding is just not wide or deep enough And when it is there, when all of these scriptures and sayings and texts are part of your body of knowledge, you will find that you are able to respond, and you are able to respond from there. And that if this fight is being fought in the name of Hinduism, or in the name of nationalism, or in the name of authenticity, or in the name of pushing back against westernization, then from those same places, from Hinduism, from our ancient texts, arts, scriptures, philosophies and beliefs, we can give the answers. But we need really to have more of that information. And a lot of the work that I do is just putting that together. Even the speech which I made on Friday, which I'm very happy to see that people have heard and and have responded to. One of the reasons why it was so long is that I wanted to put this in, and that the references that I have made, you only need to follow them up to find like khazanas and khazanas of this. And the other thing is that you can, even like I said in that speech, that every expression of our culture in itself sort of contains all the elements of that culture. If you, for instance, if you were to start seriously researching, not just with some PhDs and so on, many of whom are not singers, but if you actually seriously get into the world of Hindustani classical music, with the artists who perform it, with the ustads and the pandits and the gurus who teach it, and the families who have been in this tradition for centuries in some cases, then you will find that through any of these different art forms, you can learn about this history. And you can learn about, you can see the figures, the figures, they were people, real people, and real relationships, friendships and collaborations going back to, so many hundreds and hundreds of years between people of different religious backgrounds in India, that actually led to this composite culture that you see. And, those are the figures, those are the people that have to be resurrected and made part of the conversations and the references that we have today. And while there is nothing wrong with making the case based on constitutional rights and human rights and just common, human decency, all of that is important as well, it's not enough. Because, you kind of see it wobbling even in the West. And one of the reasons that the West is not able to respond to it is that there is no sense of an organic growth of this. I mean, you cannot forge a society based only on intellectual ideals or even on good feelings, because good feelings that are not backed up by a lived experience is just ideology. And in general, no matter which, part of the political spectrum you come from, ideology is a dangerous weapon. After all, the repudiation of Gandhi did not begin in our public discourse from the right wing. It began from the left wing. From left wing, liberal, educated, intellectuals, people were very much like me. And that was a big mistake. It was not a big mistake because we can't question people. It was a big mistake because any kind of political intervention must be based on a very deep and empathetic understanding of the people that you're speaking about. And this is lacking. It's also lacking on the right. I mean, There's no time to go into that now, but this is not a government that cares about the people. It doesn't matter what the people believe in. It doesn't even care about its own bhakts. It is a callous government that's only interested in its image and its posturing, and eventually that will be its own downfall. But we can't rely only on the seeds of destruction that lie in the regime to get out of the current situation, because they are still only seeds and it will take a long time to grow. But I think that, we really have to understand and start thinking creatively about how to respond. Martin Luther King spoke of creative protest, and he spoke of a sort of redemptive politics. He called it redemptive nonviolence. Today, we're not, necessarily faced. It does not have to become a contest between the state and the citizen. It is a contest between the state and the citizen, but in this, changing this narrative and getting people to open their minds again, which have been closed by this idea that, there's been 500 years of struggle for Hinduism, and that, the flag of Hinduism needs to be raised in India as though it had ever been lowered. In order to respond to that, we need to, also be functioning on another gear, which requires, again, it does require a redemptive approach. We have to rise above the hurt and the anguish and the sense of betrayal. Only then can we get to the other side of this situation where we find ourselves. So, Gandhi, this is what Gandhi used to speak about. His satyagraha was different from civil disobedience and strikes and boycotts and other forms of civil resistance, other forms of speaking out against the state or what have you. Satyagraha for him was an exercise in changing the heart and mind of your adversary. And he said that, ultimately the idea was that whoever you're facing, you have to be able to bring them across to your side. And in the end, neither side must feel that they have won or lost, but both sides should feel released and redeemed from the situation of antagonism in which they were, to a situation of a mutual celebration of justice, of a mutual respect and a mutual love. So, in order to get here, you have to go at a much deeper level than laws or even politics. And you really have to look and see whether there is a true, sort of organic, existence, connection between your ideals of brotherly love in a society and the kind of society that you have. Now, I don't know much about other countries, other nations, other democracies, especially of the West, in those historical and cultural terms. But in India, the fact is that this organic connection between the ideals of brotherly love and the actual way in which we are with each other and our true beliefs, our true history is there. And, what we must do is that we must trace out those roots. And, it's once you start on this journey, you don't have to try very hard. For instance, in the course of the work that I started to do with the arts and with these theatrical productions, one of my great dreams is to do a musical history of the music of India. And so, one kept going back very far into time. And in the course of this work, I read parts of the Natya Shastra. I did Sanskrit in school, so I have a little familiarity with the structure of the language and the way in which the verbs move. And then there's a lot of English translations, and there's also today with Google Translate and so many, a lot of people have just put their own translations online. Some of them are also word for word. So once you put it all together, you can get a very good understanding. And if you know Hindi, then you can sort of connect the two. So, reading the Natya Shastra, reading the Valmiki Ramayan, reading the Bhagavad Gita for all the work that I did, one thing which really struck me was the sophistication of this work. And even if Indians were to adopt that aesthetic, it would take so much out of the poison that surrounds us today. And to really comprehend what I'm saying, you need to get in and you need to read all that stuff. And I think that, we are missing an opportunity if we say that we're not going to look at this because it's attributed to a particular religion or that, why cannot we just do this based on rights and constitution? Well, I wish we could, but, consider this other thing. Because if you really get into the mood, of the, if you really get into the mood of these works, if you really get into the point of view, because it's a very sophisticated and liberal and cosmopolitan point of view, then you can claim all these ideals using, from things which nobody can deny belong to us. I think that, so, these are the sort of lines of thought that I have. And the other thing is that, a lot of people of Hindu origin or people who are Hindus are concerned about what's happening in the country today and are happy if someone stands up and speaks. But, this is not going to be enough. And I think that, of course, it's very understandable for everyone to be very nervous in the current atmosphere. It's not a free atmosphere. But, in a way, even in this restriction under which we are operating, there is a better path. It forces us to go on a better path because, it's no point actually taking a confrontational position in the current environment. So, but we have to think as to how we can, talk about our values and assert them and celebrate them. This doesn't have to be done in a confrontational or pejorative way. And, but, this requires more people to be involved and more people to be willing, to be seen to be involved. And so, get in touch if what I say makes sense. If what I say doesn't make sense, then get in touch with each other. But, I'm not talking to people who are anyway, writing opinion editorials or going to Jantar Mantar or have civil society organizations which are taking out petitions. I'm not talking to those people. I'm just talking to, like ordinary apolitical people who are, comfortably doing their jobs and raising their children. I think that the time has come for you to start doing more. It's not, goodwill alone is not going to work anymore. And, there's no need. You don't have to be an activist and you don't have to be standing out on the streets and fighting with anyone, All of this can be done respectfully and nicely. And it doesn't even, celebrating all the things that make us such a beautiful, joyous and colorful country don't require you to, take any particularly political position on the things which are going on today. But you must come out. You must come out with your money. You must come out with your participation. You must at least be an audience for this, You must come out with your goodwill and your encouragement, even if it's going to be expressed privately. And you must simply just think about it. Make this a part of one of the things that you do. Because it's, things are really spiraling out. They have spiraled out of hand. And, not everyone in the country can just leave. And I don't think that you should. I don't think that you should just take advantage of the fact that you could fly off and live somewhere else or settle your children somewhere else. Look, ultimately it's one world. Gandhi used to say that what I'm doing is, my experiment is in India, but I have a message for the world. And, if in India we are not able to again grow the flower of love, the garden of love that once was here, then everywhere else will also start drying up into a desert of hate. Okay, so don't think that you can fly off to America or Australia and, escape this. Maybe for a generation. But, like when you reach my age and I'm looking at my children, it's not enough. One generation is not enough. We feel the need to leave a good and noble world for our children and their children and for all, the generations to come. And I know that somewhere in your heart, you must feel this, but you're repressing it. Because you think that, it's too much trouble or it's going to go away, or maybe by saying anything or doing anything, you'll only make things worse. But I don't think that's right. Now is the time. Now is the time for ordinary people to simply express their love for their fellow Indians and for their wish for a happy India in which everyone has equal respect and dignity. And, maybe you will have better ways of thinking about it. You know what? Like, I come from this left-wing family and all of that, right? But one of the people from whom I have learned one of the most important lessons in my life was when I was a corporate lawyer. And I learned from my clients who were businessmen. Now, like a businessman could not come from a more different sort of environment than anything that I ever knew. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I eventually quit that line of work. But what I saw about two businessmen, like when they are negotiating an agreement, the lawyers on either side are bickering away, like every word. Why have you put an and there? And the comma should be here and everything. But the two parties on either side, they were always willing to talk to each other. They were always willing to compromise. And they were always willing to step in to say, okay, let this go. And, like I discovered, for me, this was very different because, when you grow up among intellectuals and scholars and writers and politicians, then, you're just used to this takkar, this pit bull fight, not a physical one, but, ideological one and an intellectual one. And this was a whole new different way of doing things. And, it impressed me. Because after all, whatever the lawyers were just arguing over papers, in the anticipation of a dispute that may or may never happen. But these two businessmen were coming together to actually produce something real, to give something. And so that attitude is something that I really learned from. And it's one that I applied later on in the biggest battle of my life, which was in my marriage. And I was interested to see, nowadays everybody is just supposed to be in love, and you're not supposed to have any disagreement with your spouse. If you do, they say it's almost your duty to divorce, because like, you create an unhappy home if you don't agree. I mean, I cannot imagine a world in which I agree with everyone, let alone my spouse. But I was interested to see that Gandhiji said that the grains of this idea of satyagraha came to him in his own battles with Kasturba, where he wanted to have this ashram life. And I mean, can you imagine? It's just crazy, actually. And he, whenever she would try to resist, and she had, she wouldn't walk out. In those days, people didn't, okay? But she would do whatever it was that he was insisting on. But she would let him know by her demeanor, once even words were not able to convince him, that she felt this as an injustice, and seeing this would move Gandhi's heart. And this is what satyagraha is, that if you can present your suffering, or if you can present your point of view and show your commitment and sincerity for it, your adversary will start listening to you. And if you make a case as a moral case, and you show that you're willing to stake your life on it, then he'll one day walk over to your side. Okay? And I mean, we have to do this, and we must do this in a good spirit. Ultimately, everyone is going to have to be reconciled. Even the people who are waving that saffron flag today. I mean, we all have nowhere to go. We are all Indians, and we are all here for good or bad. And, so we're going to have to find a way of embracing all of it, bringing all of it into the fold without compromising on our principles for even 1 minute. But, in order to do that, in order to bring them within your fold, in a way, you have to stop thinking as an activist. You have to start thinking as an artist, or as a mother, or as a sister, or as a wife or a husband. That's the spirit in which we have to start thinking about all of our fellow Indians who do not see things in the way that we see them. And I think I'll just end with a little anecdote from my own life. So I don't know how many of you know my other work, but I really, got into activism when I saw these cases of the children of Indian parents being taken away by foreign child services agencies. And I was just horrified, when the first case came, because it was in Norway, and I went on the Norwegian embassy's website, and there was a statement there from their child services, which absolutely, flabbergasted me in the fact that it gave no information, showed no sympathy. And the fact that any state authority could take such a drastic action of removing children from their parents permanently, and that they were not under any obligation to explain this, or to be answerable for what they had done, and that they were just able to hide themselves and their children, and the children that they took behind confidentiality laws. It's really struck me as going completely against the grain of everything that I had learned in these Western countries where I went to study as a lawyer, whether in administrative law or in constitutional law, right? And then I discovered to my horror that this whole system was actually, it had worldwide support. It came from left-wing feminists, and had, then they had managed to build up support for this across the board, and that these laws had even been brought into India, by people, from my biradari, okay? And so I was very angry, with my people, very angry with my people. And it led me to question a lot about left-wing beliefs and about even the idea of the welfare state, because, I found that, the state was being empowered to such a degree just because the people who had devised these laws believed they were doing a good thing. And it was a classic example of the road to hell being paved with with good intentions. And I also found that there was a complete, closed wall. Neither the feminists nor the rights activists were willing to question what they had done, and they just kept justifying it over and over, right? And so this questioning, led to my father getting quite worried. I could see in his face that he was not happy with some of the things that I was saying, and especially the anger that I was expressing, which I still feel. I don't. I'm not forgiven these people, and I don't see, they complain about arrogance on the other side. They're filled with arrogance themselves. Anyway, but, I said that, I'm standing up here for the family to be respected. So how can I be on this path if I can't keep my own family happy and together, and so I must not allow this to become a dispute with my father. But what to do? Because, I'm hurt by the fact that he can't understand what I'm seeing, and he's hurt by the fact that, what am I saying? I'm sounding like one of those right-wing people he hates. So he was going to go to England on some kind of visit, some conference or something. And I told him to meet up with this family. It's, by the way, the husband is of Gujarati origin. I said, please meet up with this family. Their 4 children were taken away. And I think it was 3 children were taken away. And, I just said, just meet them, because that was my way of obtaining this Hriday Parivartan, in my father. And he came back, they met, and he came back from this. He was white when he came back. He was shocked. He really felt in his heart what I had been seeing. And, he's been a real ally in the struggle since then. So, this is the way, in which you bring about Hriday Parivartan also requires you to give a lot of love and respect to the person that you disagree with. Very hard to do. I must say, when I speak to, foreigners on this and to embassies on this, I'm pretty sharp and very un-Gandhian. I feel I'm justified. I suffered to deliver my children as a mother. This is my right. But anyway, maybe I'm wrong. I'm happy to be persuaded. But this is the way to do it. Okay? Thanks for hearing me out. And we'll be in touch later on today. And keep your spirits up. I woke up weeping. I'm feeling so much better now. This what's happening. It can't be true. And we'll find a way out eventually. Jai Hind.